I think we can start the program. So welcome in the Private Equity and Venture Capital course. It's the 5th edition of this course, so we started this adventure when Bocconi decided to launch the Master of Science, so it's the edition number 5. You have to stay in a technological classroom because you know this course is divided into 3 different groups, so class 31, class 32, and we have also the class 33, which is a distance learning class, okay? Distance learning class means that people are not in Milan, but they are on the beach, I don't know, okay, in other places, but they are lucky or unlucky, it depends from the destination, but however, they are not in Milan. That's the reason why, okay, you will have videos for every session. Because my opinion is that it's a nonsense that these videos are only for people joining the distance learning class. All these videos are available for all the students 31, 32, and 33. So you will have benefit about these videos for all the classes, okay? We divided the course into 3 different classes because you have a lot of people. But the content, the scheduling, professors are exactly the same, so it's really up to you. Don't worry to join the 31 or the 32, okay, it's completely up to you, and I think it's better to have more flexibility. Please take care about it. So if there is some, okay, lessons which are not the same, okay, it's typical of human beings, so sorry if the contents and the timing is not exactly the same. But however, it's really up to you. Before starting, I would like, it's obvious, it's the startup of the course, so it's fundamental to give to you some advices and to let you introduce the course and to understand what are the rule of thumbs of the course. However, you will find everything written in the program, but in my opinion, it's better to specify in details what are the contents and what are the characteristics of the course. This is a very boring startup. Like every startup, okay, I have to say a lot of things, like stupid matters like exam and questions. I know that you are not interested in those stuff, but however, it's better to know. I have identified 5 different issues. I would like to discuss about 5 different issues. Don't worry, they are not questions for the exam, but just a preliminary introduction. So the issue number 1, the positioning of the course, okay? That means what are the characteristics of this course, what are the goals, what are the benefits I hope you will take from this course. The positioning of the course is a positioning of an applied course and of an international course. It's not a quite stupid matter because in whatever kind of university, when we have to teach private equity and venture capital, there are very, very different strategies to teach this kind of course, okay? It's a very common course in many business schools and universities, so it's very critical, the positioning of the course. We can run a course which is purely theoretical, okay? We find many courses of private equity around the world which are purely theoretical, but you can run also an applied course. My decision is that it is not possible to have a puzzle and the blending between a theoretical course and an applied course, so my decision is to run an applied course, okay? What does it mean applied? Because sometimes applied means that the course is related to the real world. Great, okay? Also theory is related. It depends from the teachers, but sometimes theory also is related to real world. Applied, in my opinion, means that this course must be enough for you to run an interview with corporate bankers and private equity to get the first job inside this world, okay? This is the meaning of applied. Applied doesn't mean that we discuss about real cases and so on. Obviously, we have. But applied means that this course is completely designed in order that at the end of May, you are really, really ready to run an interview in the corporate finance in the private equity sector. So you have the set of knowledge which are enough to become analyst into private equity firms. This is my meaning of applied course. Obviously, the course is also international, not because I have to teach in English, okay? Because I'm an Italian speaker, okay? It's not international because I speak in English. The problem is the content. What does it mean that the course is international? The meaning of international course is that it's not related to Italy or to Europe, but the course is related to the business of private equity and venture capital, which is by definition not domestic, okay? If in the future you will join the private equity world, you will discover very soon that the private equity business is not related to a country. The private equity business is international by definition, and that's the reason why we have to use an international approach. What does it mean is international by definition? Just a very short example. Every day, in every part of the world, when you invest in private equity, let's imagine you are an Italian investor, you want to invest in an Italian company, okay? This sounds as a domestic approach. No, it's not a story of private equity. If you invest, you are an investor, you are Italian, and you invest in an Italian company, your first problem is, we invest in this company using a UK vehicles, using a US vehicle, using a Japanese vehicle, because probably, these are examples, okay? You have fiscal advantages to use in other countries and to use another legal framework to invest in Italy. That means the private equity business is international by definition, and we have to follow this kind of approach. Sorry, I don't want to lose your time, but it's quite important to specify that this course is an applied one and is an international one. This is the point number one, okay, the positioning. The point number two, the issue number two, something about the contents and the syllabus, okay? You find the contents inside the syllabus. It's interesting to give a very first look to this syllabus. The course is divided into 5 parts, into 5 areas. Just to have, okay, just an idea about these 5 parts, we have to manage together. The part number 1 of the course is called Global Picture and Legal Issues about Private Equity and Venture Capital. So the aim of the first part of the course is to give to you the understanding of the market of private equity and venture capital, what are the fundamentals, what are the main characteristics, but especially in this first part of the course, we have to deal with legal and fiscal issues of private equity. It's absolutely important, because in the world of finance, not only in the world of private equity, it's fundamental that you know not only finance issues, but it's fundamental that you are able to blend finance issues with legal and fiscal issues, okay? Otherwise, you know theory, you know concept, but you are not able to apply. And applied concept means to know everything about legal issues and fiscal issues. So we have to devote a lot of energies to this area. It's a good investment for you, because I hope you will learn a lot of stuff about private equity and venture capital. The part number 2, it's, I can see, lighter than the part number 1. It's just a 2 sessions part. It's devoted to market analysis and business model. It's a lighter session, because I want to give you a picture about data of private equity, what are the trends in the market, and what are the business models of private equity. So these are 2 classical strategic sections in which we have to discuss about, okay, the strategy, the organization of private equity and venture capital. After we move to the part number 3, which is not light, it's heavy again, like the part number 1, and the part number 3 is devoted to the management of private equity and venture capital. What does it mean? You will know in this session everything about the market, legal issues, fiscal issues, about data, about trends, and now, in the part 3, we have to discuss about the management. Management means, if you have to manage a private equity company, what are the critical issues, the critical items you have to manage? To do that, I identify different phases which are the fundraising, the investing, the managing of the company, and the exiting, which are the the classical phases, which involves whatever kind of private equity investor in every part of the world. So we have to identify what are the crucial aspects of the management of a private equity company. Part number 4 is devoted to the fundamental of valuation, okay? Probably, I don't know, I have to test it, not today, okay? But probably you will know, or you know, everything about company valuation, okay? Probably in this part of your story as a student, you know everything about company valuation. So my task in this part number 4 of the course is not to run again the theory of company valuation, okay, because it's always the same, okay? DCF, multiple, and blah, 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 okay? If you know 3 concepts, you know everything, believe me, of company valuation, okay? This is not my goal. My goal is to try to apply this concept to private equity and venture capital, in which the concepts are exactly the same. DCF is the DCF. Multiples are the multiples. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. The problem is, are you able to apply these concepts when you have to evaluate a company which is not listed in the stock exchange, or if the company doesn't exist, or if you don't have comparables? Methods are the same. Multiple, DCF, cost of capital, okay. But the problem is that you are not able to manage all the items because some items are missing. That's the issue we have to focus on, okay? In these 2 sessions, I don't want to discuss about theory. I will use a big business case. Then I would like that we run all together to try to apply these concepts. Later, we move in the session number 5, okay, which is the last session, the last area of the course, is devoted to the so-called art of deal making. So we will focus into specific deals of private equity, and session after session, we will focus in a specific deal. The startup, a turnaround, a leverage buyout, a distress investing, and so on. Per every session, we have a specific deal. I decided also to introduce in this part number 5, 3 guest speakers, which are very, very guest because they are top players in private equity, which are Giancarlo Aliberti, which is the president of Apax Partner. We have Paolo Colonna, which is the founder and the president of Permira. Permira is one of the 3 most important players in the world of private equity. And last is Robert J. Tomei, which is the founder and the president of Advanced Capital. So I decided to invite 3 very guest speakers inside this classroom. Because it's a nonsense to double a lesson with 3 guest speakers, for these 3 guest speakers, I decided to join together the 2 classrooms, 31 and 32, and I specify the date of the guest speaker in order that you schedule. They are quite famous guys, but they are quite informal, so I decided at the end of the classroom to organize a very small cocktail, and you will have the opportunity to discuss with those guys. I don't know, it's important for you, okay? So take care about it. This is the syllabus of the course, okay? So, positioning of the course. Content, if you have questions, please stop me, okay? I hope not about the positioning, because otherwise it's a tragedy, okay? If you don't agree the positioning, I'm sorry. Try next year, okay? I will change the course. But item number 3, something about teaching strategy, okay? Teaching strategy. First of all, I would like that you know, probably I see that there are some of my students of other courses, that I'm a slideless teacher, okay? I have no slides. Not because I forget it, but because I don't use slides, okay? Because slides are boring, are tremendous. I'm a bit cruel, and I say when a teacher uses slides, doesn't know perfectly the contents. So I don't need slides. I'm a slideless teacher. However, I prepare for you pages of slides, okay, hundreds of pages of slides, in order that when you come back home, you can download the set of slides and you find many of the contents we developed together in the classroom. But I don't use the slide in the classroom. This is great, but there is a problem. I'm serious. I'm not able to write in the whiteboard. Okay? Today I will try, because there are video cameras and, okay, but I'm not able. It's a disaster. In the lesson number 2, I'll start to write, you don't understand anything. I'm very sorry, but it's a problem, okay? It's a problem. It's a weak point, but okay. Second, web learning. You will find everything in the web learning. So I'm a slideless teacher, but you will find readings, slides inside the web learning. I insert all the readings and materials for the first part of the course yesterday, so you will find everything. Just a thing which is quite important for me, and it's relevant, sorry, for the exam, okay, because exam is important. I divided the repository into different sections. I named a section readings and slides, okay? In this section, you will find readings and slides which are mandatory for the exam, okay? You have to download, you have to match these readings with the videos, with my teaching session, and this is mandatory for the exam. Second, we have another session which is named Software and Excel Files, in which I start inserting not only last Sunday, but day after day, I will insert other software. You will find software and exercises we will have to use all together, and these software are relevant for the exam, because we have to apply cases, we have to apply formulas, and so on. Okay, so it's mandatory to use this area for the exam. I insert also another area which is named, I didn't remember, sorry, because the exact name, but I name like additional readings relevant for professional activity and so on. In this repository, I didn't insert readings, slides, and other stuff which are relevant for the exam. So don't worry, there are no questions about these readings, but these readings are important for the day after your exam, okay? That means are readings which are relevant for private equity business. Example of contracts, some documents coming from private equity firms. If you want, you can read it for the exam, but don't worry about it, because otherwise it's a bit unfair. They are for you, especially for the day after the exam. Sometimes I will give to you some advice about these readings, but they are useful for your professional life, not for the exam. In my opinion, it's important also to have readings which are relevant for this kind of stuff. Last, about teaching strategy, you will find the videos. Of course, there is a very short delay about the day and the videos because of technical matters, so generally videos will be uploaded after 2 or 3 days after the session. It's obvious, but after the first week probably will be more quick. Last, rule of thumbs about the course, about the exam, and something about the teachers, okay? And we come to an end. Exam. The exam is very easy, not the content, okay, the approach to the exam. So we have 2 options. I divided to give to you the opportunity of a 2 midterms exam. So it's completely up to you to decide to join the 2 midterm exam, or otherwise you can join the whole exam in June and July. It's completely up to you. The content, the approach is exactly the same, okay? For the midterm exam, you will find 5 questions for exam. So in the first midterm exam, 5 questions, and in the second midterm, other 5 questions. Question means both very open questions and exercise. I don't believe in multiple choice or other stupid approach, so there are 5 questions, okay? You don't have assignments, because I think that the course is quite tough. You have to spend a lot of energies for this course, so for me it's relevant, the exam. It's really up to you to stay in the classroom, to use properly this time, to join together with cases. It depends from you, but I don't evaluate you on this kind of stuff, so only the exam. The whole exam is based, on the contrary, on 7 questions. Okay, it's longer, but the content, the approach, the style of the questions is exactly the same. So it's completely up to you to schedule, okay, what is better, okay? Only for people that decided not to join to the course, it's necessary to study and to read the book Caselli-Gatti, Venture Capital, a European Approach, okay? But completely a different story. My suggestion is, because you have the videos, because you have the web learning, it's better that you stay in the classroom or you read the videos, you download the readings. It's completely better, okay? Questions about it, about the exam? Today is very early, but after 3 or 4 sessions, you will start to ask a lot of stuff. But however, last, something about the teachers. In this course, you have 2 different teachers, okay? I'm the director of the course. My name is Stefano Caselli. I'm a full professor in banking and finance in Bocconi University. My research topics are private equity and venture capital, investment banking, and credit risk management. But my very topic is private equity. So for me, it's great to teach private equity. Okay, so it's my course, really. On the other side, I spend 50% of my time in the business school of Bocconi, in SDA Bocconi School of Management, whereas I'm the director of the Bank and Financial Market Division. So I have to manage all the courses devoted to banks, financial institutions, and to financial markets. And unfortunately, I have to manage also my colleague. It's terrible. But however, I have to manage customer and colleague. It's a tragedy. Okay, but there are 2 different lives. This is the official part of my life, obviously. The other professor is Claudio Sattin. It's a good blend, okay? It's a very strange guy, Claudio Sattin, but he knows that I introduced Claudio in this way. Claudio Sattin is a strange guy because he's a practitioner. He's the founder of a private equity partner. Private equity partner, if you read the league table of private equity, is 10 years that is ranked between the top 10 private equity companies in the world, okay? So it's really an incredible guy. It was the past president of European Venture Capital Association, but from 20 years, he decided to dedicate the 25% of his time to university and to teaching. So for me, it's really an honor to have Claudio inside this course. Because I know that it's sometimes difficult to have 2 different teachers. The design of the course is under my responsibility. And second, I decided, okay, to leave to Claudio the last part of the course, in order that you don't have a continuous change of teachers. So 14 sessions, it's for me, and the other 10 sessions are for Claudio. Because the course is quite complex, I decided also to insert a tutor, and the tutor is Alberto Dell'Acqua. It's written, sorry, not here, but in the website where you find every information. Today it's not relevant probably for the first part of the course, but for the second part of the course, in which we have business case and a lot of stuff, Alberto will stay in the classroom, so it's quite useful for you if you have short questions, or sometimes it's very difficult to manage the classroom with a lot of people. So, however, I hope it's a big team. I think it's enough for unuseful stuff, like the presentation of the course. If you have question, everything is okay? What do you think? you have videos, so you cannot say stupid issues, so take care about it. Questions, really? It's okay? I forget something or everything is okay? We start? So we start the course now. That's great. So, we can start the course and we start with the contents. As I mentioned before, the course of private equity and venture capital is divided into 4 areas, 4 sections. And today we have to start with the area number 1 of the course, which is devoted to the global picture and or the fundamental of private equity and venture capital. Whereas fundamental means a lot of stuff, means definition, means a basic concept, but means especially legal issues and fiscal issues about private equity and venture capital. This area of the course is quite long because we have to spend 7 sessions, and these sessions are quite strong. So you have to dedicate really a lot of energies to this part of the course. However, today I would like to start with the first concept of this course, and the first concept is the fundamentals of private equity and venture capital. Fundamentals means the set of tools which are fundamental to understand the business of private equity and venture capital. So we have to discuss about fundamentals of private equity and venture capital. Fundamentals of private equity and venture capital. So PEVC, private equity and venture capital, is the label you will find in the slides, in the textbook, in newspaper, and so on. So what are fundamentals of private equity and venture capital? In my opinion, fundamentals of private equity and venture capital are 4 different items. So if you want to know everything about fundamentals of private equity and venture capital, you have to know 4 different issues. I would like to write the labels about these 4 issues, and we start discussing about it in a couple of minutes. The first problem is the definition of private equity and venture capital. And for this item, I am quite unlucky because the definition is not easy. In other courses, it's very easy, okay? In the afternoon, I have to start a course of corporate investment banking where the definition is quite easy, okay? In this case, the definition is not easy. So you are quite unlucky. And I am unlucky too because I have to explain to you the definition of private equity and venture capital. So this is the first item. The second item we have to discuss is the company or the entrepreneur perspective of private equity and venture capital. What does it mean? After the definition of private equity and venture capital, you will have to understand why private equity and venture capital is useful for companies and entrepreneurs. And to understand it is fundamental to understand the perspective of the company and or the entrepreneur for private equity and venture capital. Okay? So company and entrepreneur perspective. Okay? It's quite easy, company entrepreneur perspective, but quite important. Okay? After the topic number 2, we have to change the view and we have to discuss about the investor perspective. Because if you want to understand private equity and venture capital, it's fundamental to understand the perspective of the company that needs for the intervention of private equity and venture capital, but on the other side, it's fundamental to understand why someone invests into private equity and venture capital. So we have to discuss about investor perspective. Okay? The last issue, which is probably the most time-consuming for this first part, which is devoted to fundamentals, we'll have to discuss about the clusters or the areas of private equity and venture capital. Clusters of private equity and venture capital. Why we have to discuss about clusters of private equity and venture capital? It's the most time-consuming area. It's necessary because when in a couple of minutes you will discover what is the definition of private equity and venture capital, you will discover that private equity and venture capital is an umbrella definition, okay? It's a very broad definition, and under this label, under this umbrella, you will find different business. These businesses are so different that we have to spend a lot of time to identify the different areas, the different cluster, or, sorry, the different markets of private equity and venture capital. Because the definition is very broad, it's an umbrella definition, you will have to understand what are the different business of private equity and venture capital. Okay, guys? That's the reason why in the session number 5 of the course, you will spend a lot of energies to identify and to discuss about the different business of private equity and venture capital. Because these businesses are so different that it's necessary to focus on every business to have the whole picture of private equity and venture capital. Okay, guys? Is it okay? Definition, please. No, you have a question? Okay. Definition of private equity and venture capital. This is the topic number 1. This topic, it's unbelievable because if you read books or pamphlets or newspapers, you will find completely different definitions of private equity and venture capital, okay? So the idea or the feeling is that every author has a different definition of private equity and venture capital. So from one side is a tragedy, and on the other side it's completely unuseful that I give to you Stefano Caselli's definition, because you can add a definition to other 300 definitions, so it's unuseful, okay? So my problem is not to give to you a definition, but to identify what is the common roots, the common characteristic of the different definition of private equity and venture capital. And on this definition, all the authors completely agree. So what is the definition of private equity? I'm not joking, and I'm very serious. The definition of private equity is not public equity. That's it. I hope you know what is public equity, because public equity is not private equity, obviously. Okay. In this case, I'm joking, okay? But, okay, private equity is not public equity. What does it mean? It means that private equity is an investment in the equity of a company which is not listed in the stock exchange. And this investment is always a financing of the company itself. I repeat, private equity is not public equity, and private equity is an investment in the equity of a company which is not listed in the stock exchange, and this investment is always a financing of the company. Okay? Please take care about it, because there is a very dramatic distinction between public equity and private equity. Okay? Let's imagine when you invest your money in a company which is listed in the stock exchange, you are financing the company? This is a question for you. Are you financing a company if you buy shares of a company which is listed on the stock exchange? Are you financing it? No, you are not. You are investing your money because you want to buy shares, sell shares tomorrow or after 10 years. It's up to you, but you are not financing. And you are using the markets, okay? In private equity, when you invest in a company, you always invest because the company needs money. Please remember it, because private equity venture capital is a story of investing in a company out of the stock exchange, and in the same time is a story of financing a company. Okay? Is it okay, guys? Questions about it? Please remember this sentence, okay? I don't want now to spend time to discuss who is the investor, okay? It's not relevant now, because we will discuss about investor in this item, okay? Investor, you are an investor, a bank can be doesn't matter, okay? The problem now is the definition, not who is the investor and why invest, okay? Just simply the definition. Now, I would like to take home some important consequences of this definition. Private equity is not public equity. I would like to identify some very important consequences of this definition, okay? Consequences means crucial differences between public equity and private equity, okay? And the consequences I would like to identify are related to three different topics, which are liquidity, pricing, and control. Okay? Liquidity, price, and control. Through these three parameters, I would like to compare public equity with private equity to identify the most important differences. Please take care about these three concepts, because till to the section number 24 of the course, we have to come back to these three items, okay, every time. So, the first issue is liquidity, okay? So what is your name?
Lorenzo.
Everything is okay?
Yeah.
Till now? Okay, Lorenzo, great. If you invest in public equity, so if you invest in stock exchange, okay, you have a problem of liquidity?
No.
But for what reason you don't have a problem of liquidity?
Because if I have some money to invest, I probably don't have any problem of liquidity.
Because you are lucky. But let's imagine, you invest in shares. That's a problem of liquidity. You have a problem of liquidity, so you have...
Quite easy.
what is quite easy to do what?
You sell the shares.
Yeah.
Get back the money and invest it.
Oh, that's great. It depends from the market, so if you invest in shares in quite important stock exchange, it's very easy. I don't know, if you invest in shares of a country which is not developed, probably is not so easy, but however, markets provide liquidity, right? Okay. Let's change the story of private equity. Lorenzo, you are investing now in a companies which is not listed in the stock exchange. You are investing in the company of Giuditta, okay? It's a good company, the company of Giuditta, what do you think?
I hope so.
Yeah, okay, we have to ask to Giuditta. But however, you invest 2 million euros in the company of Giuditta. You invest in the company of Giuditta, please remember, I'm serious, not because of charity, not because of friendship, but you are investing in the company of Giuditta because Giuditta needs 2 million euros. This is related to the definition. And you are investing because you want to have a capital gain, right?
Yeah.
You have a problem of liquidity in this case?
Yeah, some problems.
You have a lot of problems. Yeah, it's tremendous. You invest today in the company of Giuditta, okay? 2 million. You work a lot in the company of Giuditta, okay? After 5 years, the company of Giuditta is very big. You create a lot of value. We can measure it through multiples, DCF, and other stuff, okay? And you say, I would like to sell these shares with a price of 10 million euros, okay? You go out in the market. You fix a meeting with Marco, okay? And you say, Marco, how are you? Ah, that's great, okay. You organize a lunch. You discuss about the company of Giuditta, and Lorenzo, at the end of the lunch, is paying for you the lunch, it's obvious. Say, Marco, I would like to exit from the company of Giuditta. And you say, Lorenzo, you are right. You had a good job, it's great. But I would like to sell the shares to you. Ah, it's a pleasure for me to buy the shares of Giuditta, that's great. Marco, The valuation, you can control the Excel file, it's 10 million euros. And you say, Lorenzo, it's unfair. Oh, it's unfair. In which sense? No, the money I can give to you is 4 million of euros. And Lorenzo say, Marco, but you are unfair. 4 million of euros. The value is 10, and you offer to me 4 million of euros. And you say, Lorenzo, thank you very much for the lunch, but I have only 4 million of euros. Okay? What's happening now is that it's a game of reputation between you and you. Okay? Because if your reputation is higher, or you are stronger than Lorenzo, you start to give a call to all the other potential buyers. And you start to say, dear guys, Lorenzo would like to sell this kind of shares. I offered 4 million euros. This is enough. Okay? And Lorenzo, the day after, when we'll fix another meeting with you, the same story, the lunch, how are you? You are great, a great job, and so on. And at the end of the lunch, you will offer to Lorenzo 3 million, 0.5. You understand the game? It's a problem of liquidity. On the contrary, if the reputation of Lorenzo is tremendously big, you immediately close the deal and you say, thank you very much, it's a privilege, Lorenzo, to buy shares for you at a price of 10 million euros. This is a problem of liquidity because we don't have a market that provides liquidity, and when you don't have a market, you have to work with reputation, with network, with personal relationship. But please remember that the game of reputation is crucial in private equity and venture capital because you don't have a market that provides liquidity to you. Okay? In public equity, you have a market that provides liquidity. It's not relevant a game of reputation between the buyer and the seller. You understand? The other issue, it's strictly connected with the first one, is pricing. In public equity, market provides price, and markets develop a pricing activity. Do you understand? Do you agree? Right or wrong, every second, the financial market gives to you the price of shares. In private equity, you don't have a market. That means the price is different per every deal. Okay, you can use tools like DCF, multiple, and other stuff, but at the very end of the day, doesn't matter about DCF and multiple, because you offer money, and it's a negotiation with Lorenzo about price. You understand? So you don't have a market, but you have to negotiate every time the price of the deal. So in private equity, this is a typical story of company valuation in which you use the traditional tool of company valuation, and there is a story of negotiation in which you transform the valuation in a price. And sometimes price is completely different from valuation. Okay? For this reason, in private equity, it's more important to be very, very strong negotiator and not very, very strong people evaluating a company. It's more important to be able to negotiate the price, not evaluate a company, because we don't have a market. Okay? And the last issue is a control. What does it mean, control? What is the meaning of a control? In public equity, who controls the company? In public equity, who controls the company? If you have a company which is listed on the stock exchange, who controls the company? The market, rules, transparency. Okay? When you listed a company on the stock exchange, there are many tools which help investors to control the company, right? In private equity, when Lorenzo invests in the company of Giuditta, no rules, no transparency, you have to stay in the company of Giuditta because otherwise it's very difficult to create value. Because otherwise it's very difficult that Giuditta will spend in a very proper way your money. Okay? For this reason, in private equity, you have a very strong involvement of the investor in the company, because you have to control your investment, you have to control your money. Okay, guys? Questions about it? Is it okay till now? Questions? Okay. Now, let's try to specify something more. So we have a definition of private equity. I identified some consequences of this definition. Now I would like to specify more 3 different items. And with these 3 different items, we come to an end to the area of definition, which is obviously a bit boring. Okay, definitions are a bit boring, but are fundamental. So 3 different issues. The first issue I would like to specify is why the name of the course is Private Equity and Venture Capital. Because I gave to you the definition of private equity, and I mentioned that private equity is not public equity, but why it's necessary to insert in the label of the course private equity and venture capital. Okay? So you have to clarify it. This comes from a different usage of words all around the world. Okay? In the United States and in the United Kingdom, venture capital is a cluster inside private equity. Okay? Is it okay, guys? So in United States and United Kingdom, venture capital is a cluster inside the private equity definition. Okay? So if you go into US and into UK, you don't find a course of private equity and venture capital. You find courses of private equity, or you find specific courses of venture capital. Okay? Because in the United States and United Kingdom, when we say private equity, that means, don't worry, inside you have venture capital. If you want to discuss simply of venture capital, you have courses of venture capital. Okay? Unfortunately, this is not my responsibility, okay? This comes from the market. In Europe, not in UK, but in Europe, we use the word private equity venture capital into a different way. Because if in United States and United Kingdom, private equity is the broad definition, and venture capital is inside, in the European Union, this is venture capital, and this is private equity. Okay? The contents are exactly the same, but the usage of word is different. Okay? In the European Union, venture capital and private equity are 2 different clusters. In US and UK, private equity is the broad definition, and venture capital is inside. Because I don't know what kind of students I will find in my classroom, I do prefer to say private equity and venture capital, in order that I give to you the idea that we discuss about everything. Okay? From this point and forever in the course, I will use the US and the UK approach. Okay? So that means when I use the label private equity, I'm using the broad definition and the umbrella definition. Private equity is not public equity, and venture capital is a cluster inside private equity. So in the slides, in the readings, in the usage of word from me and from Claudio Sattin, when you use the word private equity, it covers all the topics. Okay, guys? To have the definition of venture capital, be patient, because in my opinion, this is better that I will discuss about venture capital when we'll discuss about clusters. It's easier, okay? Till now, please remember that we have different approach of usage of words inside the markets. Okay, guys? Just, this is the first issue, okay? the usage of words, private equity and venture capital. The second issue, which is relevant for the definition, is to give you some idea about who are the investors in private equity and venture capital. Okay? Who are the investors? When I say Lorenzo invests in the company of Giuditta, is an example, but who is Lorenzo? Okay? Is a human being, is an institution, is a bank. I would like to specify who are the investors. Is not so difficult. I would like that you remember that in the world of private equity, investors are financial institutions which are devoted to develop private equity activity. What does it mean? These financial institutions are devoted to invest in equity of companies which are not listed in the stock exchange, and the reason why this financial institution invest is to finance a company. I repeat, private equity investors are financial institutions which are devoted to invest in the equity of companies which are not listed in the stock exchange, and they invest in equity because they are financing the company. Okay? In the very first part of the course, I will give to you the names of these financial institutions. For example, in many countries in Europe, these financial institutions are called closed-end fund. Okay? In United States, these financial institutions are called venture capital funds. So we have different labels, but the common characteristics is that investors in private equity are financial institutions which are devoted to do this kind of job. Okay, guys? Okay? Just to use, and it's not difficult, I know, because we are in the startup and we have to remember a lot of stuff. But we have to know also the language of businessmen. They are synonymous when we say private equity investor, equity investors, private equity. They are synonymous. When we use these labels, our concept is financial institutions which are devoted and focused to invest in the equity of companies which are not listed in the stock exchange. Okay? Is it okay, guys? Questions? So the issue number one is American and European definition. Okay. Issue number two, who are the vehicles which invest in private equity, and I specify they are financial institutions. And last topic, it's a bit theoretical, and I'm sorry for that. I'm very sorry, but it's a good investment. I would like, and with this topic we come to an end of the definition, I would like to verify if private equity uses the same fundamental and the same approach of corporate finance, or there are something different between private equity and corporate finance theory. Okay? I would like to run this exercise with you. So, I need some of you which perfectly remember the theory of corporate finance. Okay? I would like to, who perfectly remember? Nobody is a drama. Okay, we can close the videos and, okay, but what are the fundamental of theory of corporate finance? Help me to remember. What are the fundamental of theory of corporate finance? What are the fundamental of theory of corporate finance? When you start studying corporate finance, in the page number 1 of whatever kind of handbook, they are the pillar of theory of corporate finance. What are the pillar of theory of corporate finance? Seriously? You didn't remember, you don't remember theory of corporate finance? What is the pillar number one of corporate finance? First of all, the goal of a company is to maximize shareholders' value. This is the pillar number one of corporate finance. When I say the pillar number one means when we discuss about the theory, but also we try to apply the different tools to finance a company, the pillar is every decision of a company is taken because the shareholders would like to maximize the value, right? This is a pillar of corporate finance theory. And what are the different approaches you use to maximize the shareholders' value? For example, an assumption is that when you identify a different source of financing, you try to reduce the cost of capital. For what reason? Because you want to maximize shareholders' value. This is a pillar of corporate finance. So let's start writing the pillar number one. Maximize shareholders' value. Okay? This is the pillar number one. What is the pillar number two of the theory of corporate finance? What is the pillar number two of theory of corporate finance? In corporate finance, there is an assumption. There is a very clear separation between the financing and the managing of a company. Okay? There is a clear separation between the financing and the managing of a company. Okay? People that decide to finance the company, they don't manage the company. Okay? There is a clear separation between financer and managers. Financiers versus managers. Okay? Is it okay? Because there is a clear separation, if you are a bank and you give a loans to a company, because you cannot manage the company, what you can do to protect yourself? You would like to have some collaterals, because in case of default, because you are not involved in the company, you cannot manage the company, in case of default, you have a collateral. And I hope from the collateral you can take home money, okay? Pillar number one, maximize the shareholders' value. Pillar number two, financiers versus managers. There is a clear separation in corporate finance. Pillar number three, no linkage between financing and investment. No linkage between financing and investment. The pillar of the theory of corporate finance is that when you raise money, these money are used to finance the company, not to finance some specific investment. Only in a specific deal, which is called project finance, you create a solution in which you raise money and these money are devoted to a specific investment. But if I don't consider project finance, there is no linkage between investment and financing. No linkage between financing and investment. And last pillar of corporate finance, you are lucky, only 4 pillars, okay? Let's imagine if there are 20 pillars. It's a tragedy, only 4, it's great for you. The pillar number 4 of the theory of corporate finance, there is a conflict in a company between shareholders and managers. And the name of the theory about this conflict is called agency theory. Okay? It's the agency theory. One of the pillars of corporate finance is that there is a conflict of shareholders and managers. And you have to try to identify contracts to reduce this conflict between shareholders and managers. Shareholders versus managers. Okay? These are the 4 pillars of corporate finance. So, if we decided to study public equity, bond issuing, corporate loans, for all these cases, we find the 4 pillars of corporate finance. And when we write a book or you run an exercise, you have to come back to these 4 pillars, even though you don't know it. In private equity, now this is a very crucial point. There is a difference, or we can apply these 4 pillars also in private equity. Because if we say yes, we are very lucky because we can apply the same tools and the same approach of whatever kind of deals of corporate finance. If the answer is not, and this is, I'm sorry, the case, probably in private equity there's something completely different from the theory of corporate finance. Let's start. Maximize a shareholder's value. Also in private equity, we have a study of maximizing the shareholder's value. Use your energy, even though it's the lunch time. Lorenzo, I'm sorry for that. You are very lucky, okay, because I will use you for all the course, okay? In every course I have key people for me, okay? He decided to change the classroom and to run another course, it's obvious. But let's imagine, Lorenzo invests in the company of Giuditta, okay? 2 million euros. Do you agree that the goal of Lorenzo is to maximize the shareholder's value? Do you agree? Yes. Lorenzo invests 2 million euros. For what reason? For charity? For friendship? For what reason Lorenzo invests in the company of Giuditta? To have a capital gain. I don't listen yes or not, so it's dangerous. In the handbook of the perfect teacher is written when students don't say yes or not, it's danger. Okay, in this case, I don't listen to yes or not, so it's danger. I repeat, Lorenzo invests 2 million euros in Giuditta companies. Okay, you produce what? Just to have an idea. Something legal or? Okay, I don't want to know. Okay. 2 million euros. For what reason? Because you would like to give to you money, and after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 1, 2, 3 months, I don't know, you want to sell the shares to have a capital gain. So the goal of Lorenzo is to maximize the value of the company. No doubt about it. Okay? And the goal of Giuditta is the same. Is the same. Marco, what you say about it? Also confidentially, don't worry. We have only 3 cameras and 10 people and 100 people, so.
I think so, they are both shareholders, so they should be aligned.
They are not aligned. They are aligned because Giuditta needs 2 million and Lorenzo would like to give 2 million. That's great. But not necessarily Giuditta would like to maximize shareholder value. It depends. It depends from what? Let's imagine if Giuditta needs 2 million euros because she would like to buy another company and to enter the Indian market to develop sales, the goal of Giuditta is not to maximize the value of the company. The goal of Giuditta is to maximize the sales. Okay? If after 2 years Lorenzo will say to Giuditta, Giuditta, I would like to exit, okay? Because, you know, I'm a private equity investor. I would like to have a capital gain. And Giuditta say, dear Lorenzo, I'm very sorry. I don't want now to create value for the shareholders. I would like to create sales because I would like to buy another company and to enter not simply the Indian market, but also another market. I'm very sorry. And Lorenzo said, Giuditta, you are crazy. You know that I'm an investor. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. I would like to exit. And a struggle will start. Okay? In other cases, Giuditta probably would like to maximize the shareholder's value. Let's imagine Giuditta is 80 years old. I'm sorry for that. Okay? You invested 2 million euros in the company of Giuditta, and Giuditta would like to sell the company to other people. In this case, Giuditta would like to maximize the shareholder's value. Okay, it depends, okay? But take care about it, because one of the problems of private equity deals is to create a compromise or to find an equilibrium between the perspective of the investor, which is always a perspective of maximizing a shareholder's value, and the perspective of the existing shareholders, in which in some cases the perspective is not to maximize a shareholder's value. Okay? To create a compromise, it's necessary to negotiate, to write contracts. In some cases, it's impossible. And in these cases, you don't realize, you don't get to the final deal. Okay? Because if Giuditta and Lorenzo are not able to find a compromise between their ideas, Lorenzo cannot invest in a company of Giuditta. Okay? It's really a problem. So, maximize a shareholder's value, not necessary for the company. Second, please remember it, you have to write it on the stone. Okay? These are really the fundamental of private equity. Second problem, financiers versus managers. In the theory of corporate finance, financiers and managers are completely separated. Please remember the idea of a bank which gives loans to a company. We are friends, but the banking system doesn't manage the company. You understand? In private equity, the financier manages the company. The financier can manage the company, absolutely. Please take care about this definition. Lorenzo invests, 2 million euros in the company of Giuditta. It's obvious that Giuditta is the entrepreneur. Lorenzo is not an entrepreneur, he's an investor. But Lorenzo would like to understand how it's possible to control Giuditta's business, how it's possible to enhance her business, and so on. In some cases, Lorenzo will decide to sit in the board of directors in the company of Giuditta. Okay? In other cases, Lorenzo would like to sit in the board of directors on Giuditta, but he would like to nominate also managers which are connected to Lorenzo. Different solutions to the same problem. The financier in private equity is involved in the management of the company. In which way? Many ways, and we have to discover it. Okay, guys? Is it okay? This is a fundamental concept. Please remember a comparison with the banking system or with people or investors which invest in bond of the company. They are not involved in the company. They want to have collaterals, other sources of protection, but they are not involved. In private equity, they are always involved. Number 3, no linkage between financing and investment in the theory of corporate finance. That means if a company raises money through bonds, the company will use those money for a lot of purposes. Do you agree? In private equity, take care, if Lorenzo invests 2 million euros in the company of Giuditta, Lorenzo wants to know exactly what is the destination, what is the usage of these 2 million euros. If Lorenzo doesn't understand what is the usage, Lorenzo will say, Giuditta, I'm very sorry, I don't give to you money. These are my money. I would like to understand and to control perfectly what is the usage of this money. For what reason? Because Lorenzo has a lot of problems, no liquidity, no pricing. If I give 2 million euros to another company, I would like to know perfectly what is the usage. Because I want to create value, and to create value for me, it's fundamental to understand what is the usage of the whole amount of money that the company needs. Okay? You will not find any private equity investor which invests in a company without knowing what is the usage of money. Every private equity investor perfectly knows what is the usage of money from the company. Last, Shareholders versus managers. It's a typical conflict in corporate finance, okay? Shareholders and managers, okay? Different goals, different perspective, and it's necessary to sign agreement in order that shareholders and managers have the same goal. Sometimes these solutions are very wise, in other cases are dangerous, like stock options, for example. But the problem is to try to combine together shareholders and managers, okay? In private equity, we don't have a conflict between shareholders and managers, but we have potential conflict between shareholders, where shareholders are the private equity investor and the previous shareholders of the company. There is a potential conflict. Okay? I give to you an example of a potential conflict. Sorry, it's the last example with Lorenzo and Giuditta. Okay? Sorry for today. So let's imagine today Lorenzo invests the famous 2 million euros in the company of Giuditta. Okay? They write an agreement and Lorenzo gives 2 million euros to Giuditta because the reason is very simple. Giuditta would like to buy new plants and machinery to develop his activity. Is it okay? Tomorrow morning, Giuditta will give a call to Lorenzo and say, Lorenzo, I have a big news. Lorenzo said, Giuditta, what kind of news you have? I have a new idea. I would like to enter the Russian market. And Lorenzo says, Giuditta, but you are crazy. We were discussing 3 months about the usage of these 2 million euros. You promised to me that you will use to buy new equipment and machinery. And now, after 3 months, you say that you want to enter the Russian market. And you want to use my 2 million to buy a company in Russia. But you are crazy. And the answer to Giuditta is that I'm not crazy. I'm an entrepreneur. Yesterday, I didn't have any idea about entering the Russian market. But today, I identify an opportunity, and I would like to enter. You understand? There is a conflict between the two shareholders, the private equity investors and the existing shareholders of the company. So it's fundamental to find a solution, to find contracts, agreements, ideas. We have to apply in order not to avoid the conflict, because a potential conflict you will find in whatever kind of private equity deal. But if you're able to mitigate the conflict, it's better. Okay? As many private equity investors say, and I agree with those people, is that private equity is like a marriage. Okay? A man and a woman, generally. Okay? They stay together, is quite strong, there is a lot of passion, sometimes there is a lot of interest. They love each other, they live together every day. The comparison is exactly the same, with the difference they perfectly know today that there will be an end. In 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there will be an end. Okay? So, because it's quite intensive, you have to live together, it's better, ex ante, to fix all the rules. Okay? Because otherwise we start living together and I discover that my wife doesn't like fish. For me it would be a tragedy. It's a tragedy, okay? Because we get married and I say, okay, I would like to eat sushi, fish and so on. And my wife will say, no, Stefan, I don't like those kind of stuff. It's a tragedy, okay? We start to struggle about it. So it's better to know everything in advance, better if we write in the contracts. Because it's a marriage, but there will be an end. And we perfectly know, okay? But if we don't write, sometimes we forget it. Because you will say, Lorenzo, please stay in my company. I need your 2 million euros. And you will say, Giuditta, I would like to stay, but I'm a private equity investor. I have to exit, and I must have a capital gain. I'm sorry for that. Sometimes in company life there is a misunderstanding, because the company doesn't understand, which is a marriage with an end. Sometimes company believes that this is a marriage, full stop, and there is not an end. But for the private equity investor, there is an end, because I need to have the capital gain, not because I'm cruel, but because this is my job, this is my life, okay? And it's better to fix everything in a contract. Okay, guys? Please, I know that in this part of the course, the day number 1, these concepts sound a bit theoretical, and I was a student, a bit unuseful, okay? But remember this concept, not for the exam, okay? It's too easy. I don't give to you questions about this content, it's too easy. But these concepts are really important to remember every day when we discuss about private equity deals, what are the characteristics of private equity, okay? When we discover that to write contracts to fix the proper corporate governance rule is fundamental. For what reason? For those reasons. Questions about it? Is it okay? Great. Let's start to move to the topic number 2. Topic number 2 is company and entrepreneur perspective. So we stay now in the position of Giuditta. Now we are Giuditta now, okay? I'm sorry, okay, for that. I don't know if you are happy that you have all those people which are devoted to you. Okay, we are Giuditta's people now, okay? So companies and entrepreneur perspective. This perspective is very simple, but like all very simple phenomena, they are very difficult to be understood. Okay. What does it mean, the company entrepreneur perspective? Company's entrepreneur perspective is why the company need money. This is company entrepreneur perspective. The company entrepreneur perspective is why the company needs money from a private equity investor. Do you agree? For what reason Giuditta asked for the intervention of Lorenzo to finance 2 million euros? Do you understand? So if we wanted to analyze the companies and the entrepreneur position, the problem is to understand why the company needs money. This is the fundamental question. Okay? Why money? I need an answer from you. Why a company needs money? Not in the specific case of Giuditta, but more in general. Why a company needs money? I need a very short formula. There is a very simple reason why a company needs money in the world. It depends. It's right because it's obvious, I'm sorry, if you need money, it's obvious that you want to do something, and investment is a good answer, but I would like to say something more general. Why a company needs money? Investment is one of the reasons why. It's the same of the answer of your colleague. In general, why a company needs money? Because there are a lot of reasons. Investing, developing the business, to distribute dividends like banks nowadays. Okay, it's a very stupid usage of money, but it's a reason. Okay, there is a very simple reason. Because in every company, yeah, but in every company there is a difference between two fundamental variables. And the two variables are, there is a difference between usage of money, okay, and sources of money, okay? You need money because there is a positive difference between usage of money and sources of money. This is the reason why you need money. What are the usage of money? You can use money into two different ways. You can use money only in two different ways. Fixed asset, working capital, okay? You need money because you have to invest into fixed asset and working capital. Do you agree? There are no other possibility to use money. Fixed capital and working capital. Fixed asset and working capital, okay? And you produce money through a variable which is called, guys, cash flow, okay? So you need money because the usage money is higher than the cash flow. You don't need money if the cash flow is higher than the usage of money. Do you agree? If this difference is positive, you have to look for money outside through debt and through equity, public and private. Is it okay? But Giuditta needs for money because Giuditta has a difference which is positive between usage of money and cash flow. Why this difference is positive, we have to study. It could be positive because Giuditta would like to invest, like the suggestion of your colleague, okay? The difference is positive because Giuditta would like to develop business, and if Giuditta would like to develop business, probably the cash flow is very small because there is a lot of costs, and or the working capital is very high because you want to develop the business, okay? But the driver is a positive difference between the usage of money and the sources of money, a difference between fixed asset plus working capital minus cash flow. Is it okay? Is it okay till now? This is a general answer, okay, not a specific answer to the reason why Lorenzo, a private equity invests in Giuditta. Till now I gave to you a very general answer. Giuditta needs 2 million euros because there is this difference. Okay? But now we want to understand something more. And something more means why Giuditta needs exactly for a private equity intervention to satisfy this need. Okay? We want to understand this very specific topic. Okay? To understand this very specific topic, it's better to say something more about this formula, because this formula is quite, static. It's a difference, okay? Now we would like to understand more about a more dynamic approach and to understand if there are stages or specific part of the life of a company in which this difference is positive or negative. Okay? For this reason, we can identify this comes from not the theory of private equity, but for the practice of private equity, we can identify 6 different stages which highlights different stages of the company life in which this why money is completely different. I would like to write these different stages in order that you have the labels, and in a couple of seconds we start to discuss about the content of this label. So the very first stage of the life of the company is what is called development. It's not startup, development. Development. The second stage of the life of the company is the startup. The stage number 3 is the early growth. The stage number 5 is the fast growth. The stage number 5 is mature age. And the last stage, number 6, is crisis or decline. okay? Just because it's very important also the usage of words in this course. This is not a criteria invented by Stefano Caselli, okay? Because sometimes, but it's obvious, teachers and professors decided to use a specific criteria to teach something, okay? In private equity, my task is not so difficult because in private equity, there is a sort of common language coming from practitioners. So when there is a common language coming from the practitioner of private equity, it's unuseful that I use my criteria to classify something. In this case, we use the common language of practitioner of private equity. So in private equity world, it's quite easy for private equity to say, okay, when we identify the stages of the life of a company, we use this approach, okay, this label. In these different stages, that in my opinion, I hope they are quite intuitive, okay? In development, there is the creation of the company. In startup, we start the activity of the company. In growth, there is the growth of the company with a very academic distinction between early growth and fast growth. In mature age, the company gets to the final size, okay, of its story, and in crisis or decline, there is the decline of the sales of the company, okay? In these stages, this difference, do you agree, changes, okay? So in some cases, this difference is positive, so you need for an intervention from outside. In other cases, negative, that the company is a cash cow, is able to produce a lot of cash. I don't want to discuss about it. What I would like to do is to identify stage by stage what are the drivers of the need for money. In development and startup, what is the driver of need of money, in your opinion? Why a company needs money in development and in startup? There is no cash flow, right? But you need money for what reason? Because you invest in working capital? It can happen, but because you invest in fixed assets, okay? So typically, a company which stays in development and startup needs money because the company doesn't have a cash flow, absolutely right, but also because the company has to invest in fixed assets. It's obvious, but when we turn to investor perspective, that means when Lorenzo invests in Giuditta's company and Giuditta stays in development of startup, for you it's fundamental the valuation of the investment of Giuditta is crucial to decide if to invest or not in Giuditta's company. Okay? Early growth and fast growth. Why a company needs money? A company needs money, first of all, for working capital, because you have to finance the growth of sales. And to finance the growth of sales means you have to finance the working capital of the company. It's, I don't know if you agree, an easier job than invest in development and startup. Because in development and startup, the company needs money because the company needs money to invest. In early growth and in fast growth, the company needs money to finance working capital. It's an easier job for the private equity investor. Do you agree? Okay? And in mature age, when a company is mature, in many cases the company doesn't need money. In mature age, generally companies are cash producer, they are cash cow, okay? Because they don't need money for investment, they don't need finance working capital, so generally they are cash producer. But for what reasons in a mature age a company can need money? A company can need money because the company would like to launch a campaign of acquisition, for example. The company is mature, I need money not for investment, not for working capital, but I need money for an M&A campaign. Because I would like to enter the Indian market, I would like to buy a company in India, I don't have money, and I need money for other people. I'm a mature company, but I need money for an acquisition campaign. Okay? M&A. And in crisis and or decline? In crisis and on decline, it's a very sad story because you need money not because you are investing, not because you are financing working capital, but you need money because there is a fall in the cash flow. Probably because there is a fall also in the profitability of your company. And so in this case, you need money because there is a fall in the cash flow of the company. Okay? Is it okay? Just 1 second, and we start again on this topic tomorrow, right? I have to keep in my mind the scheduling of the classroom. Different reasons why a company needs money. A story of fixed asset, a story of working capital, a story of acquisition, a story of lack of cash flow and or profitability. So different stories. The problem for tomorrow, to come to an end of company perspective, will be we can imagine or we can identify a rule, a scheme, an approach to understand how we can combine debt and equity to satisfy these different needs. And when we say equity, it's okay, why we choose private equity? Okay? We have a need for money. Needs are different. We have to satisfy these needs. In this world, we can satisfy needs through debt and equity. Okay, let's try to identify a rule, a criteria, a method to understand why and when we choose debt or we choose equity. And when we choose equity, why we have to choose private equity. So to come back to Lorenzo, why Giuditta decided to use 2 million euros coming from Lorenzo, and why Giuditta didn't decide to give a call to a bank and to say, dear bank, I need a loans for 2 million euros. Why? For what reason? Giuditta decided to give a call to Lorenzo. Because sometimes, in many cases, it's better to have a bank. Because a bank gives money, no problem, just simply a collaterals. Why to have Lorenzo is a marriage, okay? Lorenzo would like to enter the corporate governance, would like to say everything about whatever kind of topic, would like to understand the usage of 2 million, would like to exit, would like to maximize value. Lorenzo is a tragedy to stay with you. It's better to have a bank with a very old traditional mortgage, 2 million, you have to pay every month a collateral on your house, and you don't have problem. Why you decided to choose Lorenzo? Why you decided to choose a private equity investor? And you have to give this kind of answer to this fundamental question.